Adam, Mia, Ben, and Sarah were geology students on a field trip in the remote mountain range. The mountains, steeped in mystery, were known for their geological significance and hidden caves. They had come here to study the rocks and learn, but fate had other plans. "All right, everyone, this is it. Let's make some history," Adam said, his voice filled with excitement. He was the adventurous one, always looking for new thrills. His eyes gleamed with the thought of making a groundbreaking discovery. "I don't know, Adam. This place gives me the creeps," Mia replied, her brow furrowed. Mia was the practical one, always skeptical of Adam's wild ideas. "There's no record of this cave. It's not even on the maps." "Exactly. That's what makes it perfect," Adam grinned. "Think about what we could find." Ben and Sarah, though nervous, followed Adam's enthusiasm. They entered the cave together, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating jagged rocks and the strange, hollow sound of their footsteps. As the group ventured deeper into the cave, the temperature dropped. The air grew colder and damper, as if the earth itself were alive and watching them. Eventually, after passing through a narrow passage, they discovered a hidden entrance, a large stone door half buried in the earth. Its surface was covered in strange symbols, half erased by time. "This isn't natural," Mia whispered, touching the door's surface. "This was built." The stone door creaked open with an eerie groan, revealing a dark, musty chamber beyond. The air was thick with a strange, almost oppressive energy. As their flashlights scanned the room, they discovered something that sent a chill down their spines. An ancient tomb, untouched by time. The walls of the tomb were covered in murals, faded, yet disturbingly lifelike. The paintings depicted strange, monstrous figures, human-like creatures with multiple limbs, eyes that glowed, and faces twisted in agony. Some of the figures were shown in ritualistic poses, while others seemed to be in motion, their limbs stretching unnaturally. "These look alive," Sarah said, her voice trembling. She was the most open-minded of the group, always fascinated by the paranormal. But even she couldn't deny the strange energy emanating from the paintings. "They're just old," Adam said, dismissing her fears. "These are just ancient depictions of gods or legends. We've seen stuff like this before." But Mia was not so sure. "No, Adam. There's something wrong about this place. These aren't just paintings. These were meant to be a warning." As the group explored deeper into the tomb, they began to notice something even more disturbing. The paintings, which had initially seemed static, began to change before their eyes. Figures that had once been stationary now moved, slowly, imperceptibly. The creatures' limbs twitched, and their eyes shifted, following the group's movements. "Am I going crazy?" Ben asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Did that figure just blink?" Sarah's flashlight trembled in her hand. "I saw it too. It moved." The group froze, their hearts pounding. The paintings on the walls were no longer mere images. They were living things, breathing and watching them. The whispers, faint at first, began to echo from the walls, voices calling out, murmuring in languages that none of them could understand. "I don't think we should be here," Ben said, backing away from the walls. His face was pale, his body trembling. "We need to leave." But as they turned to head back to the entrance, they realized something terrifying. The way they had come was gone. The narrow passage they had entered through had vanished, replaced by solid rock. The tomb had shifted, trapping them inside. Panic set in as the group realized they were trapped in the tomb. The walls seemed to close in around them, and the temperature dropped even further. The air felt suffocating, as though the tomb itself were alive, breathing with them. "What's happening? Where's the way out?" Mia cried, her voice filled with desperation. The whispers grew louder, and now they were no longer distant echoes. They seemed to come from inside their heads. The paintings on the walls had turned from mere images to something far more terrifying. Some of the monstrous creatures now stepped out of the murals, their twisted forms looming in the dark corners of the tomb. "We need to destroy the paintings," Mia suggested, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "They're the key to this place." But as they approached the murals, they realized something even more horrifying. The images were not just a record of an ancient cult. The figures in the paintings were not gods or myths. They were prisoners, locked away by the ancient civilization that had built this tomb to keep them contained. "This tomb, it was meant to keep them sealed," Sarah whispered. "We've set them free." Among the many disturbing images, one stood out, the central painting. It depicted a towering, shadowy figure, obscured by darkness. Its face was hidden, but its presence was overwhelming. The figure stood above a group of worshippers, its hands raised in a silent command. As the group stared at the figure, something strange happened. The air around them began to pulse with energy. The shadows in the painting shifted, and the figure's hand moved ever so slightly, as though reaching out to them. "That's it," Adam whispered, his voice hoarse. "That's what we've been seeing in the paintings. It's alive." The figure in the painting began to manifest before them, its form stretching and growing, taking shape as it stepped out of the canvas. The room darkened, the temperature plummeting. The shadowed figure, now fully formed, loomed over them, its cold eyes glowing with malevolent intent. "You have disturbed my prison," the figure's voice rumbled, echoing in their minds. "You will not leave. You belong to me now." The group ran, scrambling for any way out. But the tomb itself had become a living entity, shifting and warping to trap them. The walls twisted, the ground trembled, and the paintings, now fully animated, reached out to ensnare them. Mia, the last to flee, turned to face the figure, her heart racing. The shadowed figure loomed over her, its presence suffocating. "Why? Why do you do this?" she asked, her voice cracking with fear. "Because I was never meant to be free," the figure replied. "And now, neither are you." In a final act of desperation, Mia grabbed the nearest object, a shard of broken stone, and threw it at the painting of the shadowed figure. The impact was deafening, and for a moment, everything went still. But when Mia turned around, she saw that the figure's face was no longer obscured. The final image had burned itself into her mind, its haunting eyes staring at her from the dark. As the tomb's walls closed in, Mia found herself alone. The figure had disappeared, leaving her with nothing but the haunting image of its eyes. And deep beneath the earth, in the dark recesses of the tomb, the curse lingered, waiting for the next group of curious souls to awaken it once more. I always imagined that Christmas would feel different once I became a mother. Warmer, softer, even magical like it was when I was young. But the truth? It mostly made me anxious. Money was tight, and working part-time at a local bakery in Glenwood Springs, Colorado barely covered rent, bills, and the needs of my 5-year-old son, Noah. Glenwood Springs wasn't exactly a bustling city. The town was small. Everyone knew everyone, especially if you lived on the outskirts like we did. In a modest one-story home my mother left me after she passed. It was located on a quiet, snow-covered street lined with aging trees, colorful porch lights twinkling like something out of a Christmas postcard. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and that was the one thing I didn't have to stress about. That year, it was Christmas week. I was 28, trying to juggle work, motherhood, and the never-ending struggle of doing it alone. My son's father had disappeared when Noah was still a toddler, and though he was a shadow in my past, I still couldn't help but wonder if Christmas would ever feel right again. Noah, on the other hand, was the embodiment of joy. Talkative, goofy, and unrelentingly curious, he was a constant source of laughter and stress relief. On that particular day, I had the day off, so we decided to drive to Evergreen Plaza, the biggest mall within a 45-minute drive. I needed to finish my holiday shopping, gifts for my sister, my co-workers, and a little something for Mrs. McBride, our neighbor, who always sent us homemade cookies. Noah was bouncing in the back seat with excitement. "Mom, can I get a hot chocolate after? The one with the marshmallows?" "If you keep track of your gloves this time," I teased, glancing in the rearview mirror. "I won't forget." "Promise," he said, holding up his pinky finger. I smiled as I linked my finger with his. Moments like these, no matter how small, made everything feel worthwhile. We parked near the food court entrance. The air was cold, and Christmas music played faintly over the outdoor speakers. The entrance was decorated with glowing wreaths, their lights flickering red and green. Inside, the mall buzzed with energy. Shoppers lugged large bags, and a line of children stretched toward a traditional Santa photo booth. "Mom, I want to see Santa." Noah pulled at my hand, his face lit up with excitement. "The one in the booth?" I asked. "That line is huge." "No, the one by the entrance. He waved at me," Noah insisted. I turned around, spotting a man in a Santa suit standing near a set of potted plants, ringing a bell. His costume looked cheap, like something purchased online, loose at the waist with a crooked belt. But despite the ill-fitting suit, he appeared harmless enough. "All right, but we're not staying long," I agreed. Noah skipped ahead, and I followed, skeptical but amused. The Santa's face broke into a wide grin when he saw us. "Well, hello there, little buddy." He knelt down to Noah's level, his voice booming. "What's your name?" "Noah," he chirped. "And I want a Supernova handheld, the blue one." "Ah, a good choice. One of the most popular toys this season," Santa laughed. "Better be extra good, though." "He's always good," I smiled, though I knew Noah had his moments. Santa looked up at me, his eyes a little too intense, his smile just a bit too wide. "You've got yourself a fine young man," he said, "and a beautiful mama, too." I felt my cheeks flush, unsure how to respond. It wasn't flirtation, just an odd, lingering remark from a man in a cheap costume. "Thanks," I replied, uneasy but polite. "You know," he continued, his voice dropping lower, "this time of year, It's tough on a single mom, huh? Shopping, cooking, keeping up with everything. I stiffened at his comment. How did he know? I hadn't said anything. He glanced at my bare left hand, and the way he said solo sent a chill down my spine. Yeah, I said shortly, trying to keep things moving. His voice softened, almost conspiratorial. Well, if you ever need a hand, Santa's always here. He gave a little wink. I forced a small laugh, trying to dismiss the awkwardness, but he pressed on. You know that song, I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Clauses? His grin was too wide now. Noah laughed. We sang it in class. Ah, yes, Santa grinned, looking straight at me. Maybe we could make that song come true, huh? Before I could react, he leaned in quickly, trying to catch me on the lips. My heart skipped a beat, and I jerked back, horrified. No, sir, I snapped, voice shaking. Santa chuckled, but it wasn't a joyful sound. It was a low, sinister laugh. Come on, it's Christmas, he said, ignoring my discomfort. Don't be shy. Mom, Noah whispered, tugging on my sleeve. We're leaving, I said firmly, grabbing Noah's hand. We quickly turned away, and I felt a deep sense of unease settle in my chest. Back home, I tried to shake off the feeling, making some takeout and curling up with Noah to watch a Christmas movie. For a while, it almost felt like Christmas again, until the doorbell rang. One ring, two, D, 2, 3. I froze, my stomach dropping. It was nearly 9:30 p.m. No one visited this late. Noah, stay here, I said, my voice tight. I approached the door slowly, my heart pounding. Who is it? I called out. A voice came through the door, muffled but unmistakable. It's Santa. My blood ran cold. No, I don't want anything from you, I said, trying to sound strong. You dropped something, the voice persisted. Just returning it. What did I drop? I demanded. I'm not sure, he said. But if you open the door, I'll give it to you. No! Leave, I ordered, voice trembling. I quickly called security, but when the woman on the phone answered, she said something that made my stomach drop further. We don't have any Santa roaming the mall entrances. Only the official Santa in the booth. Whoever you spoke to isn't employed here. My heart hammered in my chest as I ended the call. This man wasn't from the mall. He knew exactly where I lived. I checked the kitchen window, my breath caught in my throat. There, in the dark, a figure stood by the driveway, staring at my house. His eyes locked with mine, and I felt a wave of icy terror. He grinned, slow and wide, as though he knew I was watching. I called the police, and 2 officers arrived quickly. They searched the yard, but found nothing. You did the right thing calling, one officer assured me, though his voice did little to calm my nerves. We'll patrol the area tonight. But no patrol could erase the fear that gnawed at me. A few nights later, the doorbell rang again. One long, drawn-out press. I didn't answer. The next morning, there was a note taped to my door, crisp and cold. I didn't even have to open it to know who it was from. I unfolded the paper with shaking hands. I'll be honest with you. I'm sure you know who I am. I didn't mean to scare you. After a long shift, seeing such a beautiful woman made it hard for me to act normal. You and Noah, such a cute pair. I'd love to be part of your family someday. You felt it too, didn't you? Don't pretend. I know where you live. Just need your number. His phone number was typed at the bottom. I didn't sleep that night. The police were called again, and 2 days later, I was told that everything had been handled. But I never forgot it. Never forgot the way he said, "Beautiful mama," or how his eyes never left me, like I was already his. And every Christmas season since, anytime I hear distant bells or see someone in a cheap Santa suit, my chest tightens and every hair on my body stands up. Because some people wear costumes to spread cheer, and others wear them to hide their true intentions. And that year, Santa wasn't here to give gifts. He was here to take something that wasn't his to take. I never expected a single swipe to rearrange the bones of my life. At 23, I was barely holding things together. Part-time shifts at a late-night deli, lectures I sometimes slept through, rent that felt like a fist around my throat. My parents were a memory of arguments and silence. My sister had moved overseas. I had a tiny room above a bakery in Newtown and a roommate, Zoe, who flirted with danger like it was a hobby. When my roommate Zoe joked one night, "Just get a sugar daddy, Ivy. Half the girls I know already do." I laughed, but later, lying in bed scrolling through Tinder, I couldn't ignore how easy the idea sounded. I laughed then, the kind of laugh that never reached my eyes. Still, alone in bed, I scrolled through profiles until a message popped up from Victor Hawthorne. He was 50, he said, but the photos were of a man who might have aged on set. Tailored coats, a silver widow's peak, and eyes that were far too precise. His bio, collector of rare things, looking for a companion who understands beauty. His message appeared a heartbeat after I swiped yes. "Hello, Ivy. Your photo of an honesty I rarely see. Would you allow me to show you dinner?" He wrote like someone who expected the world to fall into place. I told myself it was harmless. I needed the money. I wanted to feel wanted. The restaurant was one I'd only read about in columnists' feeds. Chandeliers, linen that smelled of strangers' wealth. Victor stood as I entered with a movement so practiced it could have been choreographed. He kissed my hand with an old-fashioned courtesy and ordered a bottle I couldn't have named. He listened. He spoke about art, the way other people spoke about weather, with certainty and an impatience that made him sound important. When I fumbled a joke about my student loans, he reached across and set a thin envelope between us. "For a month's rent," he said. "Come to the gallery Saturday. There's something you should see." The envelope had more money than I'd seen in the past 3 months. It felt like oxygen. Victor didn't pressure me for anything sexual. He called himself a patron. He invited me to his townhouse in Paddington, which smelled of old paper and citrus. He taught me how to taste wine as if I'd been born with the wrong tongue, took me to auction previews, and kept me in a net of compliments so fine I hardly noticed when they tightened. "Have you ever wanted to be preserved?" he asked once, idly, while I leaned over his library's balcony. The city below spread like a map. "I don't know what you mean," I said. "To hold something in the moment," he said, almost smiling. To keep it from decay, there are graceful ways to keep beauty untouched. His words made me laugh in a way that was too small. There was a coldness there, a habit of looking at people as objects to be curated. Still, I stayed because it was easier than leaving. Over the weeks, I watched him move through the city like someone with keys to rooms no one else knew. He introduced me to younger women who hung on his sentences with hungry politeness. Once I saw one of them, Maya, standing by a sculpture in an off-site exhibition, her hands trembling around a glass of water. She was 19 and looked like she'd swallowed a storm. After that, I sated on Maya. I told myself I was protective. I told myself I was jealous. Victor only smiled when I mentioned her. "She's fragile," he said. "She needs someone careful." One evening, he invited me to a small gathering at the townhouse. Zoe had gone out of town, and I almost declined. But the money, the easy warmth of being chosen, won. The other guest was Maya. She smiled at me with lips that didn't reach her eyes. The party was quiet, the three of us sliding between conversation that was polite and pitched. Victor suggested a tour of his private rooms, a part of the house he kept locked for collectors. The basement, he called it, where old things were kept in air that smelled like cedar and winter. When we reached the door, the mood changed. The light was flat. Maya was pale, and for the first time, I noticed that she flinched at his touch. "I want to show you what preservation looks like," Victor said, gentle as a teacher. "You'll understand." I blinked, confused, and then he stabbed Maya. Her scream was muffled as his hand clamped over her mouth. Blood sprayed against the polished floor. My body froze, my lungs locked. When she didn't stir, panic carved a tunnel through me. Victor's face went unreadable. He said quietly that accidents happened and that we needed to handle it so the police didn't turn the house inside out for months. He spoke as if he were arranging flowers. I wanted to run, to scream, but my legs betrayed me. Instead, I helped. I don't remember why. Maybe fear, maybe shock, maybe his control over me was stronger than I ever admitted. I helped him drag Eva body, helped clean the blood. Afterwards, Victor poured me wine and sat across the table with an expression like a verdict. "You understand why I do this?" he asked. "To keep things pristine, to free them from vulgar endings." 2 nights later, the police came. Someone in the building had heard screaming, or maybe seen us with a door shut too tightly. I never learned who. I remember the bright uniforms, the questions, my voice quavering when they asked where I'd been that night. Victor spoke smoothly, with names and alibis and the practiced ease of a man who had rehearsed an explanation. He looked at me once in court, a small, almost tender glance, and it felt like being felt. Newspapers made a monument of the story. Victor Hawthorne, collector, charged with manslaughter. Maya, the missing student. They called me a companion to a suspect, a witness, a person who might have more to say. The cameras looked through me as if I were glass to be tested. At the trial, I learned to speak in short sentences. At night, I learned to listen for my own footfalls in the apartment, to catalog the times I had been led and the times I had consented. Victor's lawyers painted him as eccentric, a man fascinated by mortality. His eyes, when he glanced at me across the courtroom, said something different: ownership, amusement, and an inch of threat. After the verdict, after the press left, and the house was sealed for evidence, I found myself sitting on the curb outside the building, watching strangers pass. Everyone assumed I was damaged in ways I could not fully explain. Sometimes I think I was. Sometimes I think I was merely tired. Sometimes I still open the message that started it, the casual, elegant request to meet, and the words look like an invitation written in a language I did not understand. "Would you allow me to show you dinner?" they say, and I try to tell myself the truth, that I'd been hungry for much longer than one night could fix, and that hunger makes people do things they don't recognize later. I don't know if I was his victim or his accomplice. I only know what the nights taught me, how easily terror could be folded into civility, how a polished hand can press the sharpest things into your palm while you count your blessings. The choice, in the end, felt like a paper I'd signed without opening. And in quieter moments, when rain makes the pavement shine like a gallery floor, I still feel the memory of his voice telling me why he believed he was right, and the small, unbearable twist when someone you let look after you decides you are an object he will keep, whether you agree or not.
Two years ago, I moved to Texas with my best friend and roommate, Sarah. We rented a small, cozy apartment on the outskirts of town. I've always had a fascination with dolls, not the plastic kind, but those beautiful porcelain antiques. To me, they weren't creepy, they were comforting. So, on my birthday, when Sarah handed me a delicately wrapped box, I was thrilled. Inside was the most stunning doll I had ever seen. Her skin was pale porcelain, smooth except for a faint hairline crack under her right eye. She had cascading auburn curls and the most hauntingly vivid blue eyes I'd ever seen, eyes that glistened like glass but somehow felt alive. I was in awe. "I saw her in an antique shop and immediately thought of you," Sarah smiled. I named her Hazel. She took her place of honor on my nightstand, facing my bed. At night, her eyes reflected the soft light of my lamp. They sparkled, almost too much. In the beginning, everything felt fine. Hazel added charm to my room, and I found her presence oddly comforting. But that comfort began to sour within a week. It started small. My phone charger would be unplugged in the morning. A spoon I knew I had placed in the sink would be back on the counter. I blamed Sarah at first, thinking she was playing pranks, but she swore she wasn't. Then came the whispers. At night, just as I was drifting to sleep, I'd hear faint murmurs. Soft, female, like a lullaby sung through clenched teeth. I'd sit up, heart pounding, but the room would be silent except for Hazel's eyes, reflecting moonlight, staring directly at me. I told myself it was stress, a trick of the ears, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger, heavier. I couldn't shake it. It followed me from room to room, especially when Hazel was nearby. One night I awoke with a start, my arm stinging. When I turned on the light, there were 3 long, thin scratches running down my forearm. I checked the sheets, my nails, even under the bed. Nothing. But Hazel, who normally sat upright, had slumped forward, her face turned toward me, mouth slightly agape. The next morning, I found strange symbols drawn in soot on the mirror. Circles within circles, lines like thorns twisting into runes. I wiped them away quickly, refusing to acknowledge the fear spreading in my chest. That day, I went to see Father Thomas at the small Catholic church down the road, a kind, older man with tired eyes. When I explained what was happening, he grew silent. "Camila," he said gravely, "some objects carry spiritual residue, negative energy. They can become vessels, homes for things that should not walk this world." He offered to cleanse the apartment and banish whatever was attached to the doll, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't give up Hazel. She was a gift from Sarah, a symbol of our bond. So I politely declined. That night, the whispers returned, louder, clearer. I heard my name spoken with a breath that wasn't mine. "Kama, help me." I froze. My entire body went numb. Hazel sat in her usual place, but her head had turned slightly. I was sure of it. Her eyes gleamed unnaturally in the dark. Still, I didn't scream. I didn't run. Instead, I replied, "What do you want?" There was no answer. But something shifted. The air grew colder. My breath fogged up. Hazel's eyes seemed to soften for a moment. I told myself I was imagining it, but deep down I knew I wasn't. From then on, I began speaking to her. Every night, whispered conversations in the dark. I told her about my fears, my childhood, my dreams. I shared things I had never even told Sarah. In return, Hazel never moved, never answered again. But she listened. I could feel it, and I felt connected. But the deeper our connection grew, the darker the apartment became. The lights flickered constantly. Cold spots would appear in corners. Sarah started having nightmares, screaming in her sleep. Once, she woke up with a nosebleed and a bruise in the shape of a small handprint on her thigh. She asked me to move Hazel into the closet. I refused. We argued. Then one morning I found Hazel sitting on Sarah's pillow. Neither of us had put her there. That day, Sarah packed a bag and left to stay with her sister. She never came back. Left alone, I sank deeper into Hazel's world. The symbols reappeared, carved into the wooden floor this time. The walls began bleeding, ever so faintly, around the baseboards. Not red, something darker, black, like oil. At night, I'd hear footsteps circling my bed. My reflection in the mirror would sometimes smile when I didn't. My fingernails turned brittle. My skin grew pale. I barely slept. And still, I couldn't part with her. Then came the night I truly lost control. I was lying in bed, eyes closed, when something crawled onto my chest. I opened my eyes, but saw nothing. I couldn't move. It was like being pinned down by invisible hands. My chest burned, my vision blurred, and then I heard Hazel again. But this time, her voice was not soft. It was desperate, screeching. "Kama, don't leave me!" I screamed. My body jerked free. I lunged for the door, but it slammed shut. The windows rattled. Hazel had fallen off the table and lay face up on the floor, smiling. Blood dripped from her porcelain lips. That was the moment I finally broke. The next day, I called Father Thomas. I begged him to come. This time, he brought help. 3 people in dark robes, carrying candles and vials of holy water. They set up quickly, chanting as they surrounded Hazel. The moment they began, the room changed. The temperature plummeted, the windows shattered, the floor shook. Hazel shrieked, a high-pitched sound that came from nowhere and everywhere. Her mouth opened wider than it should have, revealing a cavern of black. Father Thomas shouted ancient prayers. One of the robed women collapsed, blood pouring from her nose. The lights exploded, but still they continued. The chanting rose to a fever pitch and then silence. Hazel's body cracked, a line running straight down her face. Her eyes rolled back, and then stillness. She was gone. They sealed Hazel in a glass case, wrapped in silk with runes burned into the fabric. She was taken to a private museum that specialized in cursed objects, a place far from here, far from me. I watched them carry her away, and I wept, not from fear, but from something else, grief. Even now, months later, I can't explain it. Was Hazel truly evil, or was she just misunderstood? A spirit reaching out, confused, lonely, clinging to the only person who ever listened. My room is empty now. Peaceful, yes, but sterile. Cold, quiet. Too quiet. And sometimes, just as I'm falling asleep, I swear I hear it again. A whisper. "Kama." And I wonder, did I really save myself, or did I abandon her?
Under the light of a new moon, the clouds were as thin as gauze. The dirt road leading into the forest was so quiet that the sound of dry leaves sounded like bones scraping against each other. Alex walked ahead, the flashlight hanging from his backpack swaying. cutting a thin line of light through the fog. Maya followed closely behind, her hands cold, each step like she had to be pulled out of the mud. Leo walked behind, tripod and camera bag slung over his shoulder, his eyes deep but alert, scanning the surroundings like a sentry, silently counting his breaths to keep calm. They had read the worn-out diary, an anonymous priest written in blotchy reddish-brown ink about a village forgotten because of its debt to shadows. Maya stopped abruptly, grabbing Alex's sleeve. Do you feel it? Like someone hungry? Alex laughed, reassuringly in a light voice.
I don't know, guys. I'm getting a really bad feeling
Perfect
about
for a
this.
Halloween video. He raised the camera, panning around. Fog, trees, darkness. The lens caught a few specks of dust that shone like fireflies, or other things, small and staring back. Then the village appeared without warning, without a single light, without a puff of smoke. Only the air was heavy as a stone pressing on the chest. In front of the village gate, a rickety sign hung by a rusty string. Alex brought the flashlight closer. Burned black words were etched into the wood. The unharvested shadows will find the curious. Maya took a step back. Alex smiled again, but his eyes were trembling. He pushed the gate open. The hinges made a long, screeching sound, like someone sucking in a breath to contain the pain. Inside, the village streets were filled with mud and leaves. The doors were half open, like cave entrances. Alex led the group into the first house, its wooden floors creaking. The musty smell mixed with the smell of burning incense crept into Maya's nose, making her cough slightly. On the table, an overturned earthenware bowl still lay. Alex flipped the bowl over. Below was a black and white photograph, blurry and cracked. A group of people in brown shirts, holding sickles, standing in the middle of a rice field that had been harvested to the stump. Leaving the house, they walked deeper. Every strange sound began to creep around them, light footsteps behind them. But when they turned around, there was only mist. Sighs from the abandoned well, whispers mixed in the wind, like many voices overlapping. Not harvested yet. Alex leaned into each door, panting with hunting instinct. Blurred figures began to touch the edges of the frame, just the corners of eyes. But Maya could clearly see a pair of eyes red as burning coals peering through. She grabbed Alex's hand so hard it hurt. Alex, stop. It's a trap. Alex stubbornly. I just need a few more shots. Suddenly, a window banged as if someone had crashed into it. All three spun. Behind the cracked glass, a face appeared for a moment. Hollow, eyes two dark red holes, mouth open but making no sound, then suddenly gone. Alex dropped the camera to the floor, the indicator light still flashing. They gathered their things and ran to the middle of the village. There, a small square led into many crisscrossing alleys. Houses on both sides changed positions. Windows seemed to turn to watch them. Leo counted his steps, but the count kept slipping away, as if someone had broken the numbers in his head. A hand reached out from the void and grabbed Leo's wrist. Leo jerked, jumped back, the other hand flailing reflexively, leaving 5 long purple marks on his skin, like the marks of fingers without flesh. They were lost in a corridor, in the village. Maya closed her eyes, took a deep breath, trying to find a beat other than her own. And she heard it. Under her feet, in the ground, something moving. Like many hands crawling, searching for calves, ankles. Don't stand still, Maya whispered. They can pull if we stand still. They continued walking, and then the corridor suddenly opened in front of a small church, the bell tower broken in half, the clock face frozen at 3:13. Alex pushed the door. The smell of burnt incense came like a wave. On the altar, portraits were pasted on top of each other. Peasant faces, dark eyes, gentle but deep down were tired and resentful. Some of the photos were torn, revealing behind them were old words. Called to pay rice tax, didn't return. Strange disease after harvest. Missing in the well. The paper shook even though there was no wind. A dry bell rang from the broken tower, not knowing who had rung it. The candles in the church flickered, then flared up a little before going out. Maya held her head. They're coming! Leo grabbed Alex's shoulder. Go, now! But the crescent moon suddenly rushed out from behind the clouds, casting silver light on the broken window. And as the moonlight touched the church floor, from the dark corners, figures began to step out. A figure approached Alex, reaching out to touch his collar. He was lifted, his feet kicking into the air, a scream stuck in his throat as if swallowed by the thick air. The smell of corpses and incense smoke mixed with the smell of burning straw lingered around. Alex was mumbling, his hands flailing. Leo let out a low growl, lunged forward, grabbed Alex's stomach, and pulled him back. He felt those dry, scratched fingers dig into Alex's skin like hooks. He pulled hard. Alex's body fell into Leo's hands like a sandbag, both of them rolling down the church steps. Maya, still holding her head, suddenly opened her eyes, grabbed the metal bracelet, put it on Alex's wrist, her hands trembling. Alex, the number, the document in the diary. Alex gasped. He rummaged through his backpack and pulled out a piece of paper marked with a marker. On it, under the phrase, "Do not call their names," there was a short, hastily written and ugly verse. The shadow demands its share. The person returns the favor. The black fire shines, the boundary opens. When the moon is a scythe, place the ring between the shadow and the bone. Maya recited in a whisper. She placed the Jiamchio ring in the space between the three people and the shadows. The ring did not touch the ground. It hung there, as if tied to something invisible. A very soft crack, like a tight string being cut. A few shadows dissolved like smoke. Only their red eyes fell like upside-down fireflies, extinguished in the air. The wall cracked open like a mouth. Portraits pasted on the wall fell out, flying around in the wind that came from nowhere. Breathing, the sound of wood groaning, the sound of people screaming from the ground. The passages outside, seen through the windows, seemed to change places, retreating when someone tried to step forward, sliding like the surface of water. Not long enough. Just hold them. A little, Maya said, her eyes not leaving the circle. Leo lifted Alex up. Which way? Maya closed her eyes, feeling. Everything was like a moving maze, but there was a rhythm. The rhythm of the forest. She opened her eyes, pointing towards the side door of the church. They rushed out. The circle of judgment drifted along, following Alex like a black bird. Shadows spread out from both sides of the alley. A dry hand jumped up from the ground, grabbed Alex's ankle. He almost fell. Leo bent down and hit hard. The hand shattered into cold ash. Don't stand still, Maya reminded. The shadows rushed forward, not slow this time. The circle of judgment shook, emitting a sound like metal rubbing against stone. Maya read the awkward words again, her voice starting to break. The largest shadow, probably the shadow of the old village chief from years ago, stretched out, its eyes red like two pieces of hot iron. It touched the edge of the circle and cried out. It took a step back, just one, but enough for the three of them to break free of the encirclement, dash through the broken fence, trample on rotting leaves, and breathe in the forest air. Leo ran ahead, then Alex, Maya. Behind them, the village stretched out, trying to hold them back with the alleys sliding under their feet. The wind came. The mist in the village was whipped back like a curtain. The shadows at the edges couldn't get through, their red eyes burning, then fading like dying embers. A long, long sigh, as if the whole village were exhaling. They didn't stop until they were deep in the forest. Leo plopped down, his back against the tree trunk. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were still alert. Alex put the camera on his lap, the light still flashing. I got it, he said, unsure. Maya hugged her knees, put her chin on them, inhaled the smell of damp leaves like medicine. We're out, she whispered. Temporarily. A week later, on Halloween night, Alex sat in his rented room, the window ajar, the sound of cars in the distance like a hazy river. He turned on the camera, reviewed the footage. In the frame, the fog shimmered beautifully like an effect. The door closed by itself, the window slammed shut, the hallway seemed to stretch out. Everything was there. The circle of judgment appeared in a few frames, black like a hole in the image. There was a very light knock on the door. He looked up. No one. In the silence, a very soft sigh passed by, as if coming from the corner of the wall. Alex stood up, walked to the window, pulled the curtains. Outside on the street, people were laughing, dressing up. Cheap witch and vampire masks danced under the neon lights. When he pulled the curtains back, in the reflection on the glass, Alex saw that behind him there was not only his shadow, there was also a thin, flat, long black streak, like a scythe leaning against the corner of the room. He turned around. The corner of the room was empty. Alex thought to himself, stress. The phone vibrated. A message from Maya. Are you listening tonight? Alex was about to reply, listen to what, when he heard it. In the sound of the wind seeping through the crack of the door, an old sound crept into the room. Tired but persistent. Not harvested yet. Leo texted the group. Don't be alone. Lock the door. Alex looked up at the door lock. It was still locked. Then he looked at the floor. There were a few small black dust particles, like ash, lying in a semicircle at the threshold. The circle of the orb had fallen back at the edge of the forest that night. But here, something had left the mark of another circle. Alex opened the cupboard, looked for the priest's diary. On the last page, under the red-brown ink, there was a new line. The ink still wet, the smell of burnt incense lingering. They can't harvest the body. They will wait for the soul. He took a step back. In his mind flashed that red eye. The circle of the guardians may be temporary, but the border is real. He texted back, come to my place tonight. Stay. Stay. Maya replied with a moon icon. Leo replied, I brought the rope. Alex smiled, half believing. What was the rope for? But then he remembered the moment they'd grabbed each other in the church. Perhaps that very bond was the only thing the shadow couldn't cut. Outside the window, Halloween bustled and then faded. Inside, 3 people sat side by side, candles placed around them, salt sprinkled on the threshold in a circle toward the window. "If they need a way out, give them a way out, not in," Maya whispered. Leo tied the rope around the three people's wrists, linking them like another circle, made of material so ordinary that even ghosts despised it. But ordinary is hard to break. Near midnight, when the new moon pierced the clouds once more, the whisper came again, clearer, as if someone was standing close to their ear. "Not harvested yet." Alex took a deep breath. "We are not your fields. You have been taken. We do not pay with us. If necessary, we will tell. We will name what happened." Maya nodded, eyes closed as if listening. Leo gently tightened the rope. The whisper receded a little, like an old man turning away, disappointed and relieved. The candlelight swayed, then stopped. At the doorway, the half circle of black ash faded, giving way to the yellow dust particles of the street. They fell asleep as the sky neared dawn. In his dream, Alex saw that field again. The harvesters bowed their heads, the horizon blurred like a stain. But this time, when he looked up, at the edge of the field was a small black line, thin as a thread, the forest. Many years later, every Halloween season, in university clubs or video channels, the story of the Golden Eye. It was rumored that every 100 years, the village opened its doors to harvest souls. Some people said they saw flashlights swaying in the mist. Some heard whispers like thin knives cutting through the wind. Alex, Maya, Leo did not return. They promised each other, if one day they needed to, they would go together and only together. They still heard the very light sighs in the windy night, like endless memories. But somewhere deep in the forest, the village still lay there. The houses changing places like board chess pieces. The cracked statue looked down at the dry hands crawling across the brick floor. The crescent moon occasionally turned into a scythe, licking the bright line on the warning board in front of the gate. The unharvested shadows will find the curious. And it seemed, somewhere in the shadows, a black circle still hovered, waiting for the right person to place it between the shadow and the bone. Because the border only exists when someone stands there to say, "Enough." The St. Catherine's Sacred Heart Church in Kolkata is not only a place of worship, but also a dormitory for young nuns, girls who have renounced all worldly luxuries to serve God. After a few years of training, the nuns are sent to churches affiliated with the Sacred Heart Society. On the last Friday night of March, the prayer session took place in a solemn atmosphere. Mother Superior Agatha introduced a 23-year-old girl to the other nuns. "This is God's special child, Helena. She will dedicate her life to God. From now on, Helena will live with us." But Helena's face was cold and deeply sad. She did not make eye contact with anyone, and when she looked at people, she showed no emotion. As soon as Mother Agatha finished her introduction, Helena quietly went back to her room. It seemed that she was not used to this environment. A heavy atmosphere surrounded her, making the other nuns feel strange from the first moment. The next morning, as the prayer began, the young nun Rena noticed Helena standing silently behind, muttering something in a strange voice, sometimes like a man, sometimes like a child. Rena shivered, trying to listen but couldn't understand. Helena avoided all eyes, as if hiding something inside her. That night, When the other nuns slept, Rena peeked through Helena's window. The sight gave her goosebumps. Helena sitting on a chair, her body twisted, her limbs knotted, her neck tilted to one side like a living doll. Suddenly, Helena turned her neck towards Rena. Her eyes were deep black. Her hair was tangled. Her teeth were black as if burned. Rena screamed, alerting Mother Agatha and the other nuns. What happened? Mother Agatha ran over in a panic. Rena pointed towards Helena's room. Mother Agatha looked through the window and was also shocked. Mother Agatha held the cross in her hand and walked towards Helena. Helena jumped off the chair and landed on the ground and started growling at Mother Agatha like a wild animal and stared at her. Suddenly, the cross slipped from her hand and fell. Immediately after, Helena's eyes turned black. Helena's fingers snapped back with a cracking sound, and Helena, like a beast, jumped on Mother Agatha and chewed the flesh on her hand. Helena stood there like a demon, clutching the flesh in her mouth, and Mother Agatha writhed in pain. After the attack, Helena turned back and sat on the chair and started muttering something in a strange voice. The sound coming from Helena's mouth was as if 2 or 3 people were talking at the same time. Hearing the cry for help, Father Dominic, who lived in the church, also came and saw Mother Agatha's condition and took her out. Everyone was shocked to see Helena in such a state. An atmosphere of fear also spread to the other girls. Father Dominic, the priest of the church, realized that this was not a normal thing. The other nuns were advised to stay away from Helena's room. He sprinkled holy water around her body, but blisters appeared on her skin every time the holy water touched her, looking like acid burns. After a while, Helena woke up and looked much weaker than before, moaning in pain. She barely had enough strength in her body to sit up. Her face was completely withered. Her body seemed to have collapsed. Seeing Helena's condition, Mother Agatha laid her down on the bed in the room. "Oh my God, she looks so bad. Let her rest here. The holy water will heal her." The next 2 days passed in absolute silence. Helena lay in bed, not eating or drinking anything, not speaking at all. After 2 days, he asked for water in broken words. At her mother's insistence, Helena was given water. Helena now looked a little more normal. It seemed that whatever evil spirit had really left her was now gone. Seeing Helena in such a state, Mother Agatha gently stroked her head. "Do you want something to eat?" Helena nodded in agreement, and then, after many days, Helena ate her fill. She kept eating, as if she had been hungry for countless years. As time passed, Helena's eating speed and eating style changed. Helena's entire mouth was numb from eating. After eating, Helena began to look a little different. Once again, her eyes began to change, and she began to mumble in a strange language. She said, speaking in different languages. Whatever she was doing at the moment was beyond her control. Before anyone could do anything, Helena had returned to normal. It was as if she had no idea what had just happened. Helena's behavior was becoming more and more bizarre with each passing hour. Mother Agatha and Father Dominic realized that they had exceeded their ability to deal with Helena. Helena would have to stay here until Friday, after which only Father Edmund could do anything. After a few days, Helena became extremely violent, screaming and making many voices at the same time. 3 days later, on Friday, Father Edmund arrived, and late at night, after everyone had gone to bed, the exorcism began. The deliverance began. Helena was tied to a chair. Crosses and burning candles were placed around her, and she was sprinkled with holy water, and then Father Edmund began to chant the incantation. Helena's pupils darkened again. A devilish smile appeared on her face. Helena was speaking many languages at the same time. Sometimes a child's voice could be heard from her mouth, and sometimes a thunderous man's voice could be heard. As Father Edmund continued to chant the incantation, Helena seemed to be in a rage. Suddenly, Helena screamed loudly, and at the same time, all the candles around her went out simultaneously. And then Father Edmund saw the ground between the cross and Helena crack. Helena screamed in horror. Her screams became so loud that no one could bear it. Suddenly, Helena's body began to stiffen violently, and at the same time, Mother Agatha's eyes also turned pitch black. "Come on, leave me alone. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything," Mother Agatha said in a scary voice. A year ago, Helena had experienced a tragic event. She was the victim of a family murder during an ancient ghost-worshipping ritual. At that time, an evil spirit and demon summoned from the ritual possessed Helena, causing her to be haunted since she was young. Helena was lucky to survive, but the demon spirit still followed her, making her always feel like someone was watching and emitting strange mumblings. Hearing this truth, everyone understood that guilt and despair were the reasons why the demons possessed Helena, and that she did not naturally become ferocious. Father Edmund continued the ritual, sprinkling holy water continuously, chanting the incantation. Helena screamed violently, her body stiffened, her eyes turned black, and a ghostly smile appeared. Every time the holy water touched her, blisters appeared, but the power of the incantation gradually suppressed the demonic force. Finally, Helena fell down, exhausted but still alive. Helena was taken to the hospital to recover. Her face and body were withered, but her soul was saved. Father Edmund said that this was the most important exorcism in the dormitory, and everyone who witnessed this event shuddered to remember it forever. St. Catherine's Church closed for a while to return to peace, but the memory of Helena and the demonic force that possessed her still haunted the nuns and priests, causing them to lose sleep every night. Helena continued to be closely monitored, and her story became a living horror legend in St. Catherine's dormitory.